Thank you, Janan. Please give Janan Rove another round of applause. Let us stand in solidarity together without compromising our own integrity. That was a line that she said that really stuck out to me and kind of hits home for what we're doing here today. So from personal identity to a political one, our next speaker will address Muslim activism in America. Osama Siblani was born in Beirut. He immigrated to the United States in 1976 to pursue his education. Mr. Siblani has been publishing the Arab American News, the largest Arab American publication in the United States, for 33 years. He was inducted in the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame in 2013. He is a recipient of the Spirit of Diversity in Journalism Award from Wayne State University. He has received many local and national awards for excellence in journalism and for his leadership. Mr. Siblani has a reputation for honest yet engaging interviews, with an eye and ear for both the culture and political milieu. He lives in Mr. Siblani.
Thank you. Well, good morning.
Morning.
Before I start, I just wanted to qualify two things. Number one, I stand before you today as a Muslim, not Muslimish. And second, I believe we're in Birmingham, not in Dearborn.
Yes.
So, before I talk about Muslim activism, I came in a little bit late to hear the first speaker, who is Abraham. Okay. And while I appreciate, and respect people's right to dissent, even religiously, I don't believe that we should be making a mockery of some other people's belief. I'm not saying that Abraham did. However, at some times during his presentation, he perhaps went as far as maybe the bordering of insulting Muslims. Especially when he said that Muslims are not 1.5 or 1.8 billion, they are 1 billion because he counted them. I don't care how many Muslims are in the world, or how many Christians are in the world, or how many Jews are in the world, or how many atheists are around the world. There is one person who believes what they believe. That's good for them. Is Muhammad the best person that walked on the face of this earth? I don't believe so. I believe that my dad is. And you can disagree with me. Some people believe that Martin Luther King was the best man that walked on the face of this earth. Some people believe Jesus is. Some believe Fidel Castro. Others believe Donald Trump, believe it or not. I don't know who to believe that the best man or woman that walked on the face of this earth, maybe Mother Teresa. But the thing is, if people believe that Muhammad is the best man to walk on the face of this earth, that's fine. That's fine, and I think that Muslims are not uniform in the way they think about issues. And Quran is not a book that you can take it out of context. And when we talk about one surah in here and a verse here, this came 1400 years ago, and it has reasons why, or justification why this happened. Now, do I believe in everything that the Quran says? As a Muslim, I should. But I'm not really, I'm not going to sit here and take bits and pieces of the Quran and split it and go in a controversial, issues on the Quran. However, there is a misconception that I wanted to talk about, is that my sister, the speaker that before me, Jinan, I think, believe, is that Jinan? That she talked about Arab Americans and Muslims. Arab Americans, most of them are not Muslims, they are Christians. 65% of Arab Americans in Michigan are not Muslims, they are Christians. Now, in the Arab world, it is the reverse. The majority of the Arabs are Muslims. In here in America, the majority of Arab Americans are Christians. I just wanted to make those corrections so we can proceed into the discussion of what I wanted to talk about today, which is Muslims activism in America. Now we already have a very bad image. I don't believe that the Muslims in the world actions necessarily reflect the true spirit of Islam. I don't believe so. And I believe that we should sit down and talk about Islam and Muslims. And I think we should talk about them free, away from the Quran, away from the scripture. So even though, not every Muslims, even the majority of Muslims are going by the scriptures. They're going by the interpretation of the scripture. The Wahhabis, for example, they explain Islam in a way completely different than the Shia. And the Quran is interpreted in the Wahhabis completely different than it's interpreted in other Muslim sects. So Islam is not a uniform, religion. It's not a religion that goes in by the scripture and by identifications of what the Surah Al-Baqarah or the woman or others have been, prescribed in the Quran. But here in America, Islam and Muslims, I remember a few years ago, before the so-called Arab Spring came out, leaders in the American political arena were referring to the growing Muslim community in this country. And they were saying it in public, and they were approaching mosques, and they were trying to extend their hands in order to bring Muslims into their fold and their votes, take their votes. This was wonderful. But all of a sudden, after the Arab Spring and the outbreak of violence in the Middle East and the ISIS, which is a product of a thinking that has absolutely nothing to do with Islam, came about to distort the image of Muslims and therefore to make Muslims here in this country very vulnerable to any political activism. It doesn't matter if you are an atheist and your name is Muhammad, you are being discriminated against. It doesn't matter what your thinking is, what your ideology is, as long as your name or you look like a Muslim, then you are discriminated against. So Muslim activism was really put to test in the last 6 or 7 years. And the biggest problem that we have in this country is not only the Muslims overseas that are practicing the teaching of the Wahhabis are creating a very distorted image of Islam that's being transmitted on YouTube and sometimes, most of the time, also on social media and the mainstream media, and given our community a black eye, if I may say. But our own work in this country as Muslims have a lot to do with it. Like I wanted to say, we in the Arab American News have touched on this last week, and we have criticized and wrote a piece, a major piece actually. It was not the first one, but it was last week, was the last one, about how our brothers and sisters in the Muslim community, and especially in the Shias, and especially those who are coming from Iraq, are practicing Ashura, which is a ritual by the Muslims, the Shia Muslims, that they're going out in the street to demonstrate and reenact a part of Ashura that to the Muslims even scares the hell out of them. And they do it on the street. Now it's okay for you to go into a place where you have a podium, a theater, or a mosque, or even in a closed hall, and reenact Ashura in the way that they believe that the Imam Hussein, who is the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad, how he was treated by another Muslims at that time, 1400 years ago. Now this kind of image, raising the flag, which is the black flag, that represents the sadness of what happened to Imam Hussein and his family 1200 years ago, 1400 years ago, that the images that gives to the American public, marching down the street and beating your chest as a ritual, as a sign of regret for what happened to the Imam, that is something that is transmitting images to the public that scares the hell out of them. They don't understand it. And there are people who are really trying to take these images, even they know that it's a ritual that's being done, for some reason. They're taking it and transmitting it on YouTube and putting it on Facebook and pushing the agenda that those are the Muslims who are, criminals. Look what they're doing. They are ISIS, and they're walking in the street of Dearborn and trying to prove that Dearborn lives under the Sharia law. That makes even people who are living in Birmingham, in Bloomfield Hills, who are Arabs and who are Muslims, and who used to go to Dearborn for recreation and entertainment and shopping, and they associate themselves with Dearborn as the capital of Arab Americans. They don't go to Dearborn anymore. Millions and millions of people have seen those images on YouTube and social media of people walking, raising black flag and beating their chests. They don't understand what's going on. So that really stifles any progress that Muslims wants to do in this country. Political activism, being part of the political system, trying to influence American foreign policy, that makes it very difficult. It's not what's happening only overseas, what's happening here too is bad. Now, do we need to rise as Muslim being? I'm not a practicing Muslim. I don't believe, I can describe myself as a person that can interpret the Holy Quran. I don't really identify myself as a Muslim American. I'm more of an Arab American. But that's creating a problem because people cannot see the difference between Muslim American and Arab American. It's just so blurry. And that, I'm not saying that I'm ashamed or I shy away from being a Muslim. I started my conversation today saying that I'm a Muslim. But that's really what's happening today. We just cannot be a part of a political discussion without standing on podiums or on television to defend our religion or to defend our identity as Arabs or as Muslims. Because of what's happening. Not because of only what we're doing, but what we're giving to other people who are haters as well to do damage on us in America. And I think we should stand up and correct our image. I really do. I think we should explain that what's happening is wrong and it should not be happening. Like we stood against ISIS, like we explained ourselves that many times that this does not represent Islam, does not represent Muslims or Arabs. But also we have to stand in our community and condemn these actions and stand in our mosques like we did last week. And we hold meetings like I held last week and saying, what you guys are doing in the streets of Dearborn does not help our cause. I'm not going to get involved in your head. If you believe that you wanted to beat your chest, go ahead and do it. It's your right. In America, you can do whatever you want. You can carry weapons and walk to sleep. The law allows you to do that. But is that something that you wanted to do? No one is going to prevent you from demonstrating in the streets of Dearborn or anywhere and beating your chest and raising a black flag. It's your right. But is it the right thing to do? Is it something that we are benefiting from? And in my opinion, this is a discussion that we should hold in our homes, in our mosques, in our centers. And that's where really the image of Islam is being distorted by interpretation of the Quran. By people who are really taking the Quran and Islam as a hostage, kidnapping our religion and trying to distort it without even knowing or even knowing what they're doing. I find it very difficult to get 5,000 people to go to the polls on election day, but they have no problem whatsoever getting 10,000 people to go on a demonstration just like that. Not a demonstration against occupation, not a demonstration against, like particular issues in our country or in the world, but for something that happened 1,400 years ago. Should we take this and blame it on the Quran? I don't think so. I really don't. The Quran has nothing to do with this. It is a practice that had been going on in Karbala, in Iraq, in Nabatiyya, in Beirut. Some people in even India and Pakistan, they beat their heads with swords. Is this what they say in the Quran? Of course not. Is this a Muslim practice? Of course not. But these are the images in this kind of age that's being transmitted on social media, and it's making very, very difficult for us to be politically active and be active and even socially active. And there is one more point before I have 3 minutes to talk about, which is not only being active politically, being active socially. Because when you see a Muslim, and you are not a Muslim yourself, you look at that person and you deal with him as a stereotypical image of what you see on television or on social media. And the fact is not true. These are not facts. The facts are most of the Muslims in the world, like most of the Christians in the world, like most of the Jews in the world, they are good people. Like most of the atheists in the world, they're good people. There are some of them who are taking their religion or their belief as a hostage and transmitting those images to distort their religion and their beliefs. So, in the last minute, I would like to call on everyone who believe in the Quran or believe in the Bible or don't believe in any of those, not to take a symbol or not to take a part of the Quran or a part of the Bible to judge the entire 2 billion Christians or 1.5 billion Muslims, but to deal with each person individually or with each group individually, with each element of the society individually rather than collectively. Thank you.